Hey guys, good evening. I hope this is a great end of the week for you. It's Friday night, and I hope you've managed your time well. The topic for this live session is time management for engineers. Before we start the topic, we received a lot of questions, and we'll go through all of them. Plus, if you're live and you have questions, we'll definitely take them. But let me introduce the three people on this call. We have Arnav. He's a famous YouTuber. You may have seen him with many funky expressions doing videos. Uh, Before that, he's also co-founder of Coding Blocks, and he graduated from DTU where he was participating in a lot of hackathons. Uh, if you ever have a problem in the Zomato app, please blame him. He was the engineering lead. You can go to his LinkedIn, send him a message, send him the bug, and he will run away from you. So that is Arnav for you. We hope to hear a lot of tips and tricks on his engineering journey so he can help all of us become better engineers. Thanks for being here, Arnav. Uh, and we'll happily roast you. So the other person on this call is Bhavik. He's smiling very widely. Unlike Arnav, Bhavik is not a software engineer, but like Arnav, Bhavik is an engineer. He was in IIT Madras, where he spent the first couple of years trying to get a lot of grades, and the next couple of years trying to run away from grades. He started his career in BCG, which is a management consulting firm, and he went around looking at oil and gas pipes to understand what is happening, did not understand it, so moved on to Bain Capital, where he spent a lot of his time in very intimate surroundings with Microsoft Excel, building financial models for big companies with small decimal digits. And the third person on this call is me. My name is Yash. Unlike Arnav, I'm not a software engineer. Unlike Bhavik, I'm not an engineer. I actually did economic psychology from St. Xavier's College in Mumbai. I started my career as a management consulting in McKinsey, where I worked on projects as far-fetched as tourism to tiles on the floor. And then I worked a little bit in New York City, where I was in the World Trade Center office, but I would look down at night, and other than the view, it was many sleepless nights. So we've all struggled with a lot of time management issues in the last 5 to 10 years of working. And in this particular session, we would love to share with you a few things we have discovered, which we hope will help you become the best engineer you can be. Great. So let's get started. No delays. Arnav, we received a lot of questions, and because I will prioritize first with you and then Bhavik, we'll go around the list of questions. We'll keep it 2 to 3 minutes per question. Uh, the first question is for you, Arnav, and that has come in through our community on Discord and various other platforms. And the question is, particularly right now when you're in work from home setting, how do you manage your time when there is no defined start point and end point, and often you may not have energy left for any coding practice, for example? So this was a coder that asked us this question. So the question for you, Arnav.
Okay. No, it's a very pertinent question actually. I have asked that question to myself as well when the work from home period started, and I think it's interesting that although the question is about time management, the answer lies in compartmentalization for me. When this whole pandemic started and everything was happening work from home, I used to just sit on my bed and work, and slowly that started to impact mental health, and it started to impact like the way time is getting managed for me as well. So I think the biggest solution to that has been creating the office mode and the home mode for me. Although office is within my bedroom now, and in fact, for a long period of time, the initial 6 7 months, what I did is very strictly started, actually living in another room where like go there to sleep, to eat, to do any other non-work activity, and actually have the workplace separate, so that the boundaries are created that okay, this is my work time, this is non-work time, and then separate that out. Um, that was there. The other thing is, I think about not having time to do certain things for yourself, which also I faced, and I realized that context switching is really harmful in terms of time management. Like if you have a 12 to 1 meeting, and then you have a 3 to 4 say meeting, and then those are about some management topic, or project management, setting up product goals or something. In between, you think 1 2 3, I will do some deep dive into debugging. But at 2:45 you have almost found out a certain bug and you are really deep into it, and then you suddenly like, oh, I need to prep for 5 minutes before that 3 p.m. call. So that entire time you have spent from 1 to 2:45, that goes waste because you will have to do that context build up once again when you do that. So there I started, very deliberately putting in some constraints that Fridays, Wednesdays, no meetings at all. Talk to my manager at work, talk to my team, and we start trying to figure out a way around that. That we need to have like days where we are going to be doing deep work. No meetings on that day. Then even the days where there are meetings. Uh, one responsibility that comes to me being like a team lead is also to take a lot of interviews whenever we are hiring, and in tech everybody's always hiring. So try to align all the interview calls on the same day, and then not do any broader project management, product goal setting, work distribution in the team. These kind of meetings then compartmentalize that different day, because then you are like, okay, today I am in a interviewing mode today. That's what I'm going to be thinking about. If there is a lot of, so another thing that happens is I felt like I'm doing a interview, and then just the call before that was around some strategy discussion. The next call again, continuation of that with some other people. So during the interview I get distracted. Okay, I need to think about this other thing, writing something on the doc, and then not focusing on the interview. The interview then goes longer because I'm not jotting down the notes properly. So this compartmentalization has largely helped a whole lot in terms of having time to do our own things as well, and not feeling that I'm just running out of time all the time.
Wow. So you're actually saying, this is interesting. I want to bring in Bhavik as well, because what you're saying is your compartmentalization to manage work from home schedule at work is both physical, where there's a spatial separation between, let's say, your bedroom and where your workstation is, and also
Even
very, very
clothes, even clothes. Like
calendar.
I prefer wearing a different set of clothes when I'm working. Yeah,
Are these Friday 9 p.m. work clothes, or uh, what
these
clothes
are
are these?
scalar YouTube clothes. Very compartmentalized.
So basically, put borders is the takeaway from Arnav. And I think it's interesting you brought up the debugging point, because the rhythm of work then for Bhavik, you will be very different. And the other question we received, which is very much in line with that, is if you are planning your work, Bhavik, in a week, and you're trying to find that same rhythm that Arnav is,
Yeah,
how do you plan the workflow so that you meet your many deadlines?
yeah. No, that's a good question. I think a week started well is much more likely to succeed, right? So you want to start that off really well. And I think the key is to really know the kind of person you are. Different hacks for different people. I can share some of mine, but caveating it first with the kind of person I am. Right? I'm a kind of person who likes to have visibility on their week upfront. Broad contours of it doesn't have to be nth level detail. Is slot mein ye hona hai, but broad contours should be known. I think that predictability helps. And secondly, I'm a kind of person who likes to make lists. So my hack towards starting my week is actually maintaining two lists. The first list is sort of a master list. That's all the projects I have ongoing in my life or projects I want to start in my life. And this is not just professional, it's also personal. So that's sort of the master list, right? Within each project, you have a set of things you want to do, not the nth level detail again, not I need to send a mail to Yash, I need to have a call with Arnav. It's more, hey, these are the outputs you need to get to, do XYZ analysis, do make ABC document, think about XYZ. That's the master list. Every Monday morning, I make a new list, which is this week's list. And within that list, then I start shifting or copying things from my master list, which I want to focus on in that week. Now, early on in my career, that prioritization, which points do you move from your master list to your this week's list, was critical. And I would, try to use all kinds of funky frameworks, impact, effort, criticality, yada yada yada. Over time, it gets more intuitive as you start doing it more often. You start consciously solving for certain constraints. So now I just shift things from this master list to this week's list proactively every Monday morning. And then it's a matter of every day looking at that list, adding new things, removing things. There's a lot of satisfaction in striking out items. The satisfaction you get from crumpling pieces of paper with your to-dos and throwing them in the bin, trying to replicate that virtually. So that's sort of my rhythm. Every Monday morning, look at your master list, add it to your this week's list. Then on a daily basis, revisit it, add new things, remove old things. End your week with relooking this list, moving everything back to your master list, and reflecting what did you do right, what did you do wrong. So that's sort of an ideal week's rhythm. Some weeks have it, some weeks don't, but that's sort of my ideal picture.
Got it. So you've built basically a set of systems in
Mm-hmm.
terms of lists, and then you strike and then create new, and then even if it's the new thing is the same, sometimes it gives a feeling of completion. So I think
Yeah, it does. You
that's a
solve
good
for
hack.
little delights. And for coders out there, I mean, it's sort of a, you don't want to live life only first in, first out, or last in, first out. You want to have control. It's important to know what your stacks look like. So controlling your stack and getting delight out of removing things from the stack is sort of what I solve for.
Got it. Got it. So micro specification and then you optimize. Amazing. Amazing. I actually, we had a question from the community, but we also have the same question right now from Anuradha and Saurabh, which is around the question of, the theme of, so Anuradha's question is, if you get excited and you enroll for a class and get exhausted, many stuff is half done. Saurabh's question is, how do you decide the percentage of time to give to personal learning while working in a company? I think the theme that we can address as a question is, and I'd let any of you start. How do you manage work and learning? Because both take time and both need to be done.
Yeah. I think managing work and learning together, especially in really fast environments like startups, is really key. Yash, why don't you start that one? Because you, amongst us three, I think you're the most active, proactive learner.
Right. Thanks for putting me on the spot. Basically, I think that there's two ways to look at learning. In that, I think we look at the second way, not the first way. In my head, the first way of learning is just capturing new insights and lessons from the people around you that you're working with, the projects and topics that you're working on, and the situations you're exposed to. So, for example, with people, no matter who I'm working with, they most likely know something about some topic that I don't. Situations can be some particular kind of conflict or new type of discovery with finance or tech or marketing and sales, and topics can be something around, let's say, how do you build a whole lead funnel, or how do you think about the user flow in the free product. So because those are happening anyway in the work, I try to capture that and just go 10% deeper to understand more about why. Ask two whys and then I understand a little bit. That's one way of learning, which gives me lesser guilt because I'm not doing much proactive. The second way is actually then following proactively. Like maybe that's what you're referring to, Anuradha. Following proactively a rhythm to learn outside of your work, outside of the people, the tasks, and the situations you're exposed to at work, which, by the way, you should do in the first place by capturing data and learnings. It's ready available resource. Why let situations go? On the other end, I think I personally believe that for me, learning is a creative process, more creative than analytical. So I find chunks of time. Typically in the week, I dedicate about 15 minutes in the morning for micro learning of topics that I like. Some apps that I use are, for example, brilliant.org. And then I also find other particular apps like Skillshare on very small topics. Uh, the other bigger topics I sort of keep away and then do over the weekend. So I'll watch a bunch of YouTube videos on a topic that I want to learn, which may not have anything related to my productivity, called space tourism. I'll go watch 10 videos on it over the weekend because I think YouTube has these many funky topics as well. So broadly, those two things, I try to capture the learnings that come my way organically through people that I'm exposed to at work, through tasks and through situations. And otherwise, I do micro learning in the morning every day for 10-15 minutes, as well as bigger topics of curiosity on the weekend. So that's a little bit. Thank you for putting me on the spot, Bhavik. Uh, Saurabh's question is still not answered, which is there a minimum percentage time? And I think this is interesting because, Arnav, I'm sure as a software engineer, as you've been working more and growing in your career, you need to deliver more, but you also need to upskill in parallel. So you need to have percentage of time. So how did you manage that balance as you managed your fast growth?
Interesting, and you're completely correct that learning plays a very key role there. So what I feel is that now this is very personal and it's contextualized towards my journey, but I have always felt that uh, in total in my life, I always try to spend actually 50% of the time on learning and 50% of the time on building things creating things, whether it's necessarily at work or there have been a lot of phases in my career where I've been not actually working somewhere. I've been sort of on break and then doing some side projects, something like that. Now, when at a work kind of environment, what I feel is that there you should do a 80-20 rule that, you spend 80% of your actually the time that your employer is paying for you. In that context, you spend 80% of the time actually doing output generating work, and 20% of your time on, doing things that are going to help you learn. And there prioritize, of course, learnings which will help you grow in that context in your career. And that's what, you know, your manager, your company, they're also expecting similar things. And in bigger companies, that's even sort of formalized that, you have learning times you can take. So the very recent company that I was in, it's Target, which is it's a big MNC, like one of those FANG companies. So it's a huge employee workforce. So they have very formalized structures for that. So they have something called 50 days of learning. So you can take 50 days time every year. Those 50 days, you don't have to actually produce any work. You don't need to check in that day to meetings, and you don't need to, mark off things on Jira that day. 50 days, any you can take it in bunch. You can take it independently as well. And those days you learn something. Obviously, you contextualize that to how that would be useful at work, and you sort of also write down some notebooks about what you learned and all, and then help your other friends at work as well with what you have learned, share that knowledge as well. So that's within the work time 80-20. But then apart from that, I think you should have some separate time for yourself as well, where you are learning, not necessarily confined to exactly what you're working on, but in terms of a larger, career goal that you might have, or in terms of a personal development goal that you have, that, these things I need to learn to do excel in life, to become a better person. Take time out for that as well. So yeah, I mean, probably whatever time you're working, if you make it 100 is a value for how much you're working. You put 60 more for extra time that you spend on your learning, and then you sort of that becomes this 80 and 80 in that sense.
Got it. Got it. So basically, Arnav, you're saying that the line is drawn sort of in broadly the 80-20, either by yourself, or sometimes your company draws the line for you and says, here's the line, take X number of days, such as the example that Arnav said. So hopefully sort of that answers your curiosity. But I saw that Bhavik was, smiling away while Arnav, you're saying 80-20, which probably indicates that Bhavik, you have some of your own sort
No,
of stories around
I
what
actually
you've
realized
seen.
there is also one philosophical thing that needs to come in place to actually do that really effectively, which is picking what you want to learn. I realized early on that I can either look at what people want me to learn or what I see other people learning and get FOMO and try to replicate that. And the more non-aligned it is to your own interests, the harder you will find to take out that time in a very organic manner and carve out that time and use it. The moment you pick topics or subjects that you actually are genuinely interested in, it also becomes really easy.
And I think we have technical issues in Bangalore that have led to a blackout in Bhavik's house, which is I've had 6 calls with him today, but only during the YouTube live this has happened. So maybe let's switch to the next question, and then we'll find Bhavik again. Uh, we found in the list of questions, Arnav, as we were going through, thank you for your question,
Mm-hmm.
Saurabh. Something that people wanted to get very tactical advice, right? And the question is, if you list down some tools that you use to be more productive,
Right.
to manage your time, what are some of those? And also, I would like to add the nuance. Are there nuances, for example, which have come up as you change the tools as you grow in your career?
Understood. So this is a important question, and I want to take up one very important point out of this. And when I started my first company, and I ran coding blocks for 4 years, and I was a very young founder, straight out of college, and uh, hired people. Some initially, they were just juniors from my own college, then much more senior people as well. And sort of productivity tools was always something like, obviously, it has to come top down. So as a founder, you set up some structure. How do you do productivity tools? When it is 5 people, you don't need a tool. Your WhatsApp group is the tool. Then as that increases, then you start having like proper responsibilities. Is a tech lead,
I'm
is
not
a
just
tech push.
just one
Yeah, yeah.
very important interjection is having a power backup also a very important productivity tool that you would advise Bhavik to have.
Apologies,
Oh, I
apologies.
would actually, by the way. I my my Wi-Fi router runs on backup power. So like if I have a power cut, my internet does not go off because of that. And
Very nice.
half the meetings are a waste of time. You have to do that whole meeting all over again sometime later.
Indeed, indeed.
But
Guilty
sorry
as
for the
charged.
interjection. You were talking about the tools in a more serious way, so we'll let you get to it.
Right. Yeah. So coming back there. So about tools, and then like I said, so as we grew and as we realized that productivity tools. So first of all, just for project management itself, like task tracking, etc. When team size is 30, not 5, then you need tools to keep track of them. And then one pitfall that I have seen, especially like if you are the one who's deciding what tool to be used, right, whether personally or for your team, people fall into this shiny new thing syndrome for tools as well. Like they try out Asana, then they try out Basecamp,
Hmm.
then they try out Dropbox, and then there's so many tools, and every tool has a lot of beautiful features. Which one is to one, you won't get an exact copy of the same set of features in another tool. And you would say, okay, I want this A feature from this tool, B feature from this tool, and so there was this productivity tool called Flow. So the founder of that tool actually wrote a very long blog post once that he got so fascinated by any.do and I think Wunderlist and all that he started creating his own productivity tool. And then he realized that, after running that company for 4 or 5 years, he was not destined to make a productivity tool. He just personally loved tinkering with productivity tools so much. He wasted 4 years of his life building an actual company, which he raised funds and he made his own competitor for Wunderlist and any.do. Finally shut it down because he realized that that's not his calling in life. Now, here, coming back to actually answering the question properly, is that um, the tool should be the second thing. It should be the answer. First, it should be like, first you have to answer that what mental framework do you need, first of all? Like, where is the issue? Is the issue in keeping track of things? Is the issue in compartmentalization? Is the issue in responsibility management? Or is the issue in sort of creating a list of tasks that needs to be done, whether you need a stack of it, whether you need a queue of it, whether you need to, sort of do a LIFO or a FIFO of the tasks and all of that. Figure that out, and then you go and try to find out a tool that will help. I would say start off with something like, something like just a notepad, right? And after going through a lot of tools, I came to an understanding is that every day when I wake up, I just use actual physical notebook and pen, right? I have to say notebook, I have to prefix physical these days. Notebook means so many things. There's digital notebooks, laptops are called notebooks. And then I just do that, quadrant myself for every day is that, if it is important and urgent, then you do it. If it is, important but not urgent, then you delegate it. If it is urgent but not important, then if it is neither important nor urgent, then you just put it off for later or you don't do it. Right. So defer, delegate. So but that's something I do. That I do it every day. I just wake up and okay, today these are the things that I need to do. Put it on my notebook, and then I figure that okay, there are 8 things to do. I can divide probably two to two like that, and which two I need to pick up. Every day you will feel like you have 7, 8 things to do, and you will actually have the time to do only 2, 3 of them. Um, but that said, about tools, people would be probably looking at this and expecting some, tips kind of answer as well. And obviously, not sponsored by anyone, but I'm a big fan of any.do, by the way, which is to like after going through many of them, I felt like, for personal task management, the tool as simple as it is, that's better. I have gotten attracted to a lot of features in a lot of tools, and finally I realized that any.do is a very nice tool for me. It just is a simple list of tasks. It does not have too many features, and I really love that.
Got it. So you basically said that tool comes next. The first thing is your mental model and to identify the issue. And then of course there are lots of tools and you've seen your own set and you have a particular preference. But you're saying that
Hmm.
is it fair to say Arnav, that getting too deep in tools can actually also be counterproductive to
Yes.
productivity?
Yes, definitely.
So,
That itself can be a pitfall, trying to find out the tool.
Got it. Got it. Got it. No, I think I'd love to get Bhavik in on this one because while he's not expecting this question, and I don't know if his network is there, maybe he's actually not there. Is he still live?
Can you
I
guys hear
don't
me?
think so. We can hear you, yes. So I think just a add-on question, Bhavik, there. You have had a lot of tools that you use, and at work, people have noticed that you have some secret recipes to control the amount of Slack pollution that you get.
Yeah.
So how do you manage how do you manage things like Slack pollution and screen time and social media and all of that together when you're on so many screens all the time at the same time?
Yeah, that's a good one. I've struggled with that one for a while. Uh, in general, we have so many fronts to be active on these days. There's your professional front where you're working on Slack or email or whatever you're doing. There's your personal life, your social media, bunch of stuff to manage. Uh, I think just philosophically, it's very important to compartmentalize, as Arnav said earlier, right? You compartmentalize spatially, and you compartmentalize in terms of in terms of your schedule. I will not try. I will try to not use Instagram when I'm in my workspace. If I need to use Instagram, I'll be outside on the couch, lying down, sipping some coffee. So just spatial compartmentalization is really helpful. After that, I think with things like Slack, these are just rabbit holes you'll get into. You will suddenly find 2 hours have disappeared. So there are some hacks around that which I don't try to create myself. Again, waste of time. I want to manage my time. I usually just go search what do power users of this tool, usually do, and you can pick up some very nice hacks from there. And then it's all about customizing whatever hacks work well for you. So that's really helpful. I think having visibility to data really helped me. So the moment I shifted to an iPhone where there's a very easy tracking of your time, it was an eye opener. You're using so much time on certain apps. So now whenever a certain app's usage goes above a certain limit, I delete it. Even if I'm in the middle of a game where I've reached some very advanced stage, I will delete that app. I will detox myself from it for the next 1 month or so until I feel comfortable going back to it. So you got to be a bit ruthless with stuff like that. Otherwise, I think you just keep it super simple, right? It's the same philosophy as Arnav's. Even when it comes to using which app do you choose, you try to keep it super simple. I've gone through using 10 apps, trying out different features, ended up in the most basic note-taking bullet app called Workflow. So I think 3 takeaways here. Don't try to recreate the wheel. Go online, check what power users do, and understand what of that you want to adopt in your space. Secondly, be very cognizant of data. A lot of phones these days help you track how much time you spend.
And there are a lot of power cuts in the city of Bangalore as well. So back to you, Arnav. This is the second time I think
No, actually, I
it's a
will.
really
I can. That was a very good point about that digital detox thing. Actually, Bhavik was saying, and I would sort of add to that, do a plus one to that is these screen time tracking and all has been very useful, I would say. Um, I think they don't sort of help you reduce screen time, anything that sort of guilty call. You have to do it yourself still. But at least that gives you that guilt. At least that's the step that it comes around to it. And yeah, I mean, one of the other things is also I have felt is that reducing notifications helps a lot. So with both iOS and Android these days, I've seen that most apps have a very fine-grained notification preference. And if you remove some of the ones that you don't really need notifications about, notifications have this, medically, if you talk to any psychiatrist and all, they will also tell you that if your phone is lying around and notification comes, that gives you a certain set of anxiety that I need to check what has
mm,
happened. That distraction layer is there. So reduce those notifications there. Uh, do you really need an app for everything? Sometimes there are certain things that if you just go to the website and use it, that's better. And then the website does not send so many notifications. It's not so easy to open it as well, which are frictions that automatically come out of that. So do that. I think that's another solution out there. But you have to take some steps like that. Like you have to sort of fight with yourself on those things. And mobile devices are very distracting, to be very honest. And sometimes things which are classified as work, like sometimes Slack could be distracting as well, right? So I also prefer some work blocks, etc. So there are deep work periods I have. Like I have this Friday Wednesday model where I was just saying that these 2 days I'm just really deep down I'm working. So during that period I actually don't keep the mobile near me, right? And that's fine. I mean, if it's like my mom or dad have to call me, they have the landline number. They can just call me if that's that level of emergency. But
You have a
otherwise, not
landline?
contactable. Yeah.
Let that
Actually,
be
not
the
a part of
title.
our generation.
The title of this video has to change. It has to be "Time Management Secret is equal to own a landline, get rid of your phone," featuring Arnav Gupta. You'll get funding for this, Arnav.
Right. Could be true. But that helps. Like just keep away your mobile, and this time I'm just working, and then that helps a lot, I would say.
Got it. Got it. No, very helpful. I think Bhavik shared his recipes on tracking screen time, Slack pollution. You shared that. I want to take a question. I think Lakshya has a point. Ankit, Notion is a great tool. Actually, Arnav once walked me through his YouTube insights using Notion, so it's definitely a great tool. Lakshya has a question, and Bhavik, love for you to take that.
Mhm.
What's your routine at home? How many hours do you work? You obviously work some 17 and a half hours, is what I know. And Lakshya finds it hard to sit for long durations. You're clearly sitting right now since early morning for long durations. So, what are your recipes and hacks for sitting and working for long periods of time?
Yeah, fingers crossed, no more electricity outages. Hopefully, I get through this answer without dropping off. Interesting question. I think, look, let me split this into two parts, right? One is how many hours do you work, which is very subjective, a function of a bunch of things. I can share one general philosophy there. And then some hacks around what do you do if you have to work that many hours, right? I think, firstly, how many hours do you work? This would sound like a preachy philosophy, but I honestly have always subscribed to work as much time as it takes to get the job done efficiently. So, A, you want to get it to a certain outcome. And of course, you want to get it to a certain outcome efficiently, right? After a point, if you're completely dead, you have no more intellectual capacity left, then it's obviously wiser to just shut shop, recharge, come back. Otherwise, if you still have energy, I'll go as long as it takes for me to get stuff done that I've signed up for or that I've signed myself up for. I've always hated just counting hours. Uh,
Hmm.
it's not efficient. I think you're solving for outcome. You're not solving for activity. One of my favorite managers had this dialogue he used to always tell me, which was we often mistake activity for outcome, and that always stuck with me, right? So you're not solving for activity. He used to say activity ka paisa nahi milta. So
It's
that's
like
just
the favorite
philosophy.
line. It's like one of your favorite lines, if I may interject, where you've told me often on call that, Yash, you're moving along. There is a lot of distance, but I don't think there is displacement.
Yeah, that one's maybe a little more controversial. I'm sure I did not say it in that tone,
I'm
but yeah,
kidding. But you've used the met.
yeah. I think outcomes are metric to track for uh, outcomes smartly, not in terms of number of hours, but whatever gets me to that fastest. If getting me to that fastest is me taking 6 hours off, getting some sleep, and coming back, then do that, right? I think for now, once you know how much time you have to work, or once you know what outcome you're solving for, then it's about solving for getting to it most efficiently. And everyone knows that after a point, doing the same thing, sitting in the same place, gets inefficient. So some hacks for that, I try to periodically just get up, displace myself, go to another part of the house, interact with people around me, have a quick chit chat, some banter. It really helps refresh you. Going out in the balcony, get some fresh air, drinking a sip of coffee, listening to some great music. It's good to compartmentalize even your free time, right? Get those 15 minutes out, do something that energizes you. I know for Yash, that's some spine breaking yoga. So he solves for that. For me, it's maybe music in a hot shower. I solve for that. But solve for those pockets. What you'll realize is you're not going to win in the long run if you're not taking any breaks. You'll be very tempted to sprint, but you have to take those breaks out. And what frequency they're at varies person to person. I know there are fans of the Pomodoro technique where people are like, 20 minutes kaam karo, 10 minutes go, relax, then come back. Doesn't work for me, works for a lot of other people. So what is the amount of time you want to take a break for, and at what frequency is for you to best discover for yourself. But important to do that. Definitely important to do that. I think there are very few instances in life where you can't afford a 5-minute break if it helps you become more productive.
Got it. So you're encouraging Lakshya to follow some rhythms and discover your own thing. Lakshya, just one thing. I don't know if you sit for long periods of time in one go or not, but sitting is in fact, according to some studies, the new smoking. So you should definitely take breaks physically while moving your hands and legs every 40 to 60 minutes. Because I have seen coders bend further and further and further into their laptop. And Arnav right now is bending forward to answer this question. So I guess the next question is very, very relevant for you, Arnav. Sleep is known to be a valuable thing. How much does a software engineer need to sleep? But before you answer that, Suraj, I just want to probably also add, I don't think sleep discriminates between whether you're a software engineer or not. It's probably the same kind of thinking you have to apply for all humans. So sleep is necessary, more so for software developers, perhaps because you work more at night. But Arnav, your tips and hacks.
Right. Actually, just coming to Suraj's question before that, Lakshya's question, one thing to add, probably if you can set up a working desk setup also as an alternate to a sitting one, that really helps a lot. I have two setups at home. So actually, one of the setups I have because I also shoot these YouTube videos. So because of that, I have a standing setup. And there are days where I spend the entire day on the standing setup. It really helps a lot. And even the sitting one, I feel that ergonomics are sort of important. I have been able to sit for much longer periods of time after I got this gaming chair, which I very recently got. Before that, there was another chair which is not so comfortable, and then I used to feel like not working after a time sitting in that kind of a setup. So comfort is obviously very important. And then obviously you can talk to doctors, and they will also tell you the very same thing that body posture and all those things are sort of very important in that. Coming to Suraj's question, how much sleep is enough? Actually, one part that probably, I don't think that it is about software developers or not. It's about your circadian cycle as well. It's important that you identify that you don't go with what everybody else is doing. Maybe all of your friends are more active and more productive at night. Maybe you are not. So ask yourself that honest question as well. Maybe you are. That what's a good productive time for you? And it could be a lot of factors. It could be that at certain time of the day there is certain kind of disturbance in terms of noise or people displacing you out of your room because somebody is sweeping the room, cleaning the room, fan has to be turned off. Those kind of things. So around that, what's a period where you can set out 2 3 hours of good deep work kind of time. Those kind of things are important, and according to that set up your sleep cycle. Some people I know have seen the advantage of sleeping 4 hours at two different times of the day. That helps a lot of people. Some Most people do obviously sleep in one shot the entire time. uh, what generally people say is that 8 hours is a good time. One thing I will simply say is that don't cut down on sleep at all. I have had periods where I have done that, and then like after doing it for 7 8 days, not sleeping adequately, like every day sleeping say 1 hour less, that fatigue adds up, and then suddenly on Sunday I crash and I'm sleeping for 20 hours, right? Those kind of cycles, if those happen, they are not good for your body, right? And then you would reach by the time you have gotten to Friday, you would not notice, but that small 1 hour fatigue of every day has added up. And Friday, you're not able to concentrate on anything at work at all. You're looking at that when I will crash. Your body is looking at that. You're not consciously even thinking about it that I need to crash for 20 hours, but your body is yearning for that at that point. Right. So putting that time in place is sort of good. If possible, one hack that I have found out is very good is sort of go to sleep at a certain time that the next morning or like whenever you're going to be waking up, it is not tied to a like say 9 a.m. you have a meeting and you want to sleep for 8 hours. Don't go to sleep at 1 at night. That exactly 8 hours will finish. There's an alarm that will wake you up at night. Probably go to sleep at 11 or 12, right? So that you don't need an alarm to get you out of your sleep. So that you can wake up sort of automatically when your body is ready to wake up. Keep a buffer on that side because the worst thing that happens is if you wake up very groggy, you wake up in one of your bad REM cycle modes where you just wake up and you're not able to zone into work for the first 5 6 hours of the day. So it's better that you wake up when your body is really ready, rather than you have to. Sometimes 1 a.m. you will push to 3 a.m. Then you go to sleep at 3 a.m. Then at 9 a.m. when you wake up, you're not ready to wake up. So keep enough buffer for your sleep. So schedule it accordingly.
Got it. So I think lots of tips and tricks there. You can do 4+4, 1+7. Actually, not 1+7, 7, 8, and then keep the buffer, Surat, so you'll be fine. Just taking the next question, and I think so far good. We've discovered routine at home, sleep, ergonomics, how to be productive, how to manage time. I think we're moving closer towards more work-related topics beyond just time management, closer to productivity. And Nikhil there has a question very similar to time management productivity, which is very tactical, but I think it's important around the dual monitor setup. If you do use it, yes or no, then what's on that screen? I don't. I think Arnav does. I think Bhavik does. Maybe Bhavik, you want to start because I saw your setup where you had this table where I think
Yeah.
all you could see was screen one, screen two, and then the fan above.
I've been tempted to expand to more screens, but I've held back. No, I think for me personally, look, it depends on the kind of work you do. But I'm guessing it's very similar for coders as it is for me. Uh, Splitting your screen up into two different elements is super useful for different kinds of work. First work is when you're doing analysis, where you need to look at two different views, either of the same thing or of different things, and you need to quickly absorb different kind of information. For that, I personally find dual screen setups to be super awesome, uh, because I hate the loss of productivity when you're doing that alt tab again and again. So very convenient that way. I think the second type of activity which it is really helpful for is very tactical nonsense where you're doing copy pasting or you're doing very brute force comparisons, things like that. The third kind of thing which I love using a dual screen setup for is when I'm multitasking, which is either I am, maybe doing a meeting and quickly corresponding with someone on something that's urgent, whether it is I'm doing less mind intensive work on my main screen while Manchester United's match is going on the side screen on mute. So I don't have that FOMO which distracts me usually. So again, solving for productivity, I know I can't resist watching it. So let me solve for having it there while I'm doing my main work. I think it solves for all kinds of things, right? Whether it's intense work, whether it's very tactical work, or whether it's more casual work where you're trying to multitask, right? So I'm a big fan of dual screen setups. Uh, Again, solve for the kind of work you're doing. I found that when I switched to them, I'm more productive. I'm not wasting time in all tabs. I'm not wasting time in getting distracted outside my control. So I control my distractions on my second screen. That really helps. What do I do on the second screen? Usually, my main screen is where I want most of my focus to be. My small screen is where I want to see stuff either periodically, but not continuously, or where I need to do some kind of comparative analysis, then it's easier to decide what's on the other screen. That's at least my hack. Arnav, is there a more coding nuance to this?
I mean, very detailed answer coming in here. I think very, very technical answer. So I'll just give you a quick overview of my desk
Anecdotal,
as well.
perhaps.
So this is what my desk look like, and this sort of triple monitor
Wow.
setup. I'll tell you, I'll explain what. So this is the vertical monitor which I usually use for the code here, and then more code can be displayed together. So that's why I have that. So generally, actually, these two are my work setup. So this is the laptop on which I have Slack and email and then communication stuff open, and this is where I work. So this is how I sort of differentiate between that generally what I'm on a day-to-day basis. What's happening is that I am having to look at a lot of code, either writing or reviewing somebody's code, and then that stuff, which is basically like the tech work, that happens on the screen. And the laptop screen is sort of like a background distraction kind of a thing, that where okay, if some ping comes on Slack, if a meeting is supposed to start, so the Zoom meetings, the communication stuff, all that happens there. I have to quickly revert to an email without sort of going away from the context of what code and all I was writing. So I do that. The other screen, that is actually what I think Bhavik was saying, like if you have to follow the match or something like that. So that's actually connected to my personal computer. That's not connected to my work. But if I have to sort of take a little break where I'm having some snacks and watching a quick maybe informational video on YouTube or something like that, or reading of some article and stuff like that. So I do it on that screen. So that screen is actually entertainment screen, and I don't use that for work purposes. Apart from that, like I said, that if there are days where I am actually going to be doing super deep tech work and not doing communication at all. So those days I actually just unplug my laptop and I just take my laptop in my lap and I just work on that one screen. So that day there is no background stuff, no multitasking happening. Just code is open and I'm just coding on that. So that on those days, no two monitors, just the laptop screen. So that's how my setup works. Evolved over a long time.
I think, Arnav, you have a house of monitors. I think there's more monitors there than there are anything else in that part of the room, which looks amazing. I'm going to buy some of these, I think, even though I don't code. But no, very interesting to see so many monitors. I just have one screen right now, a small ThinkPad. Being mindful of time, I'll quickly pick a few more questions, maybe just a couple of more or one last. Atharv, to your question on, is all of DSA used in industry? Having talked to a lot of engineers, even though I'm not all of it is used. Depending on the job, some of it is more relevant than the others. We can definitely do more live sessions to go deeper in that. I know Arnav is itching to speak, but I will stick to topic. I think VCode, your question has come out again, which is you're an SDE intern and your whole day gets by just doing internship work, DSA problems, and then you have to explore Android too. So how should you manage your time? There's probably a general answer and there's a specific answer. Maybe Arnav, you can start with a specific answer, and then Bhavik, you can add some general principles on it for VCode, who I don't know the name of, but glad to hear the question.
Right. So I think I will try to be concise on the specific answer. It's, I think, very simple. Is that whole day gets going is sort of think the unit of compartmentalization. How to put it is that, can you compartmentalize at an hour basis? Can you compartmentalize at a day basis? Or would it be like weekday weekend kind of divide? And you have to answer that question. That, can you efficiently say that today 5 hours I will work, 2 hours I will spend on learning? Is that something that works for you? Right? The answer depends on whether you'll be able to honestly stop working at 5 hours and then start that learning part at the 2 hours. And is 2 hour a good enough single chunk of time? Maybe for learning, whatever you're learning right now, Android development to start with, maybe 2 hours, it takes that kind of time to set up your project environment, and also 1 hour, and then only 1 hour is left to learn something. Probably having a 5 hour block for learning is more efficient than having a 2 hour block of learning. Maybe that's the case. So in that case, you can't do a 5+2 split on the day. Then let's think of a day-wise split. That, okay, 4 days, let's say, out of the week, let's say 4 days I will spend on doing the work of my internship, right? And here is what most of your managers, whoever you're reporting to, they are not going to ask that whether you did the work on Thursday or on Friday. They will ask that this week you had these tasks to do, whether it was completed or not, right? They're not going to get into the nitty-gritties of how you did or not. So think it out. Maybe you have to work for 7 hours instead of 6 hours for Monday to Thursday, so that your task gets done on Monday to Thursday. Friday you spend on learning. Maybe Saturday, Sunday you have for something else. Or if you want to spend the weekend also on learning. So either you do the compartmentalization either day wise or do it on hour wise. Find out what works for you and what you can stick to, right? And then follow that. But creating that hard boundary that this is like on my timetable, the time right now is on learning, so I will spend it on learning. I will not do it. Don't let one of the compartments overflow into the other one. So that, I think, and then anything on a broader level, I think up to Bhavik, like how do you again divide time into sort of working plus learning?
And maybe while you're doing that, Bhavik, also take on the last question with the nuance of very, very relevant question from Chirag, which is, how do you deal with, of course, time management, but also the fact that there's a lot of stressful notifications from people in need, given the COVID situation? Are there any specific ways to manage stress and time and productivity together that you use? And maybe that's the last question that we can cover before people actually can manage the rest of their Friday night time and not get bored by us.
Yeah. Firstly, apologies again, electricity outage. I've not lost electricity in a week, but today's live, we suddenly lose it 3 times. It's incredible. Cool. So, sorry, what was the first question that Arnav redirected? I can quickly address that, and then I can take Chirag's question.
So the question there was that, we have VCode, who's a SD intern at a startup, and ends up doing a lot of internship work, DSA problems, wants to explore Android as well. So too many priorities. How to manage time?
Interesting. I think we've addressed a lot of kind of prioritization before. One thing which I think is worth touching upon, because I also learned it in recent years, I didn't know it earlier. And once I started trying to implement it, it turned out to be a decent game changer, was something which Yash does very well, which is identify parts of your day which are optimum for certain type of task. Which is, if your mornings are creative, use it for that. If your afternoons are analytical, use it for that kind of work. If your evenings are lazy, that's where you slot your free time. I think also understanding when your personal rhythms, allow you to do certain types of work better is really helpful. Maybe that's a hack which people can use. I've been trying to do it and it's helped. For me, for example, creative work is actually early evening. For Yash, it's morning. Doesn't make sense to replicate it, but the philosophy of identify what is creative work time is really helpful. To the other question, which is around, how do you manage stress in COVID times? Honestly, it's really tough these days, right? There will be work stress, there will be stress in your own personal life if someone's unwell. There will be friends who you want to help out, and then there will be broader community negativity, which you have to face and you have to acknowledge, and you have to find ways to deal with it. I think one thing that I try to do, not always very successfully, but try to do is stay informed, and wherever there are ways I can help out at whatever small level, try to do that. I don't think it helps, putting blinders on and acting like nothing's wrong with the world. It's actually helpful to acknowledge it and then find ways in which you can react or contribute to it. That's super important. Whether it's engaging with just your small community, your neighbor, your building, or whether you want to do it at a broader platform, it's helpful to acknowledge and do whatever you can. It also leaves you, in a slightly better mental space. I think one thing which most people don't publicly acknowledge or use as openly is, look, there will be times in your life where there is high levels of stress or anxiety, and it would be helpful to talk to someone, right? We end up bottling up too much. One thing which I try to tell as many people as I can is, if you're in a bad space mentally, acknowledge it, and there's no harm in getting professional help. Talk to a therapist, talk to a counselor. Some of those conversations are game changers, right? They can help you think through your own thoughts and acknowledge some of your own constraints or issues that you're creating for yourself, and help you energize yourself and channel that energy in a way that is most helpful. A lot of times I've seen friends as well as myself go into a rabbit hole of negativity where it's really hard to pull yourself out of, right? You can't stand in a bucket and lift up the bucket. You need sometimes someone else to come and help you lift that up. So I think to sum it up, one is acknowledge that there are issues in the world and try to find ways in which you can contribute to it. Second is look for external help wherever required. There's no harm in it. There's no shame in it. It's very important. And I think those two are my hacks for it.
Awesome. I think helpful for all of us in a very tricky time. We'll now sort of let me wrap up. I think Athar, Sanjay, Rishikesh, Shrikant, there is, and Bharani, there's a Discord link that we will share. It's in, I think, the video description as well. But we'll share it.
So we will add that to the video description, and probably you can drop it in the comments as well. So I mean, just to everybody who asked a lot of tech questions as well, and I completely understand, like, that's primarily what kind of content that usually is on our channel as well. But we really wanted to take up this topic because we got a lot of questions on Discord from our Scalar alumni as well about the time management piece. And then I'm sure that after all the discussion we had, this is going to be a lot of value to add here. But yes, definitely, if you have any tech questions, and many of the questions that you have asked, some of those topics, we plan to have more such live sessions on tech topics as well in YouTube. But apart from that, definitely join our Discord channel. It's a very strong community that we have been building on Discord. And lots of people, like Abhimanyu is one of the co-founders at Scalar. He's very active. I'm very active. There are Scalar stars who are like ex Scalar alumni who are achieving like great stuff in life. So they are also very, very active out there, and you would find different perspectives out there on Discord as well for these tech questions. Definitely go there. There are some specific channels as well, like for example, Android specific questions or Node.js specific questions. There are some data structures algorithms. There are specific channels also on that. So would love to see all of you guys on Discord with these questions as well. And we'll try to set up more sessions to sort of answer more core technical questions as well sometime for sure.
Awesome. No, thank you, Arna, for the save. I think for the rest of us who are here, I would like you to enjoy your Friday night, and thank you so much for attending our live session. The only thought I'll leave you with is that if you're thinking time management, there is no right answer, but there are wrong answers, and the wrong answer is following somebody else's right answer in a blind way. So I think the summation of everything we've said is you find a style that works for you and just follow that. That's most important, right? Tool, other style, schedule, blog, none of that matters more than what works for you. So I hope you manage your time well next week, and over this weekend again, manage time for both manage stress and have fun. Thank
And
you so much
don't
for
waste too
attending
much
live.
time finding a solution for this.
Yeah. While we go and manage our own end of day, thank you so much, and I would love to meet you guys in the next one, and we can do other topics on soft skills, tech topics, anything you like. Please comment here on this video or send us a text on Discord. We'll be sure to cover that in our regular live sessions. Thank you so much. Thanks,
Awesome.
Arnav.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Bhavik.
everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening on a Friday evening, 9 p.m. This is Yash and Bhavik. I'll give you a quick intro of who we are and what we plan to cover in this session. So this session is going to be between 30 to 40 minutes long. It'll be in two parts. Part one will be a few questions that we'll deep dive into. Each question we'll cover for 2 to 4 minutes. And part two, which is the last part, last 10 minutes or so, will be a rapid fire under 100 seconds. The topic for this session today is how can you as coders build the superpower of business thinking. On this session, actually, not call, we have Bhavik and myself. Bhavik's background is he is an engineer from IIT Madras. And then in the first 2 years of his college, he ran after grades. In the last 2 years, he ran away from it. He started his career in BCG, which is Boston Consulting Group, a management consulting firm, where he started developing a little bit of this business thinking superpower. And then he spent a lot of time in the oil and gas sector and various other sites in India working on ground business problems. Ultimately decided that maybe he needs to look at a 30,000 feet view of the problem and went into private equity, where there is a lot of, I would say, money and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of intimacy with Microsoft Excel. So he spent time in one of India's most prestigious private equity firms called Bain Capital in Mumbai, and then decided at the end of it to join Scalar, where he leads the business unit along with me and Vedant to drive growth and great career outcomes for all our learners. So welcome, Bhavik. Great to have you. I won't be as kind to you in this entire session as I have been right now. I try to put you under the spot.
Likewise.
For all of us watching, please note that we do have some questions from community and some from our Scalar learners as well, and Discord as well. But we'll try to consciously be very, very unprepared so that we give you an honest reaction. And so our attempt has been to not tell each other what we will ask each other. My introduction, keep it short. Unlike Bhavik, I'm not an engineer. Unlike most of you, I'm not an engineer. I did economics and psychology from this college in Mumbai called St. Xavier's. Like Bhavik, I also started my career in management consulting in McKinsey and Company. I spent a couple of years in the India office working across various sectors, I think more than about 10 cities. And then the last couple of years of my consulting career in the New York City office of McKinsey. Fun fact, it was in the World Trade Center. Not so fun fact, it led to a lot of sleepless nights, looking at a beautiful building and looking down at people having good lives. So here we are now helping grow Scalar and build great engineering outcomes for all of us. Welcome, Bhavik. So to kickstart this session, the topic is how can coders build the business thinking superpower? And to kickstart the question set, Bhavik, I think the first one. I'm sorry, what?
No, I said fabulous topic.
I think there is a technological glitch. Yeah, well, it is a fabulous topic, but it is a little ambiguous as well. So I guess the first question is, when you think of business thinking and you think over the last, 5.5 years that you've cultivated this, do you think it's an inherent trait, or do you think it can be developed? And that's very important to set the foundation for, so that everyone on this in this session understands how you go about it in the very beginning.
Interesting question. I see the googlies have already started, but I think this is not one of your harder ones. I have a very definite point of view here, and that is, I think business thinking is something you develop over time. And oh, thanks, Mohammed. Business thinking is definitely something you develop over time. I can start with an anecdote and then more structurally why I believe so. I think anecdotally, I myself do not come from a business background. In my family, there are primarily either engineers or people in the military, and none of them have ventured into the world of business or finance or any of this before. So growing up, I think the thing I was more exposed to was the world of science, engineering, automobiles, etc. What I wasn't really exposed to was the world of business. And for the longest time, I didn't even push myself to think in that direction, right? There was no nice story of growing up. I was tinkering with businesses, tried a startup or two on the side, none of that. Very simple science, education, sports linked upbringing. However, in the last 5 years, after graduating from college, and in the last couple of years of college, I started getting exposed to that world more and falling in love with it. So I think both Yash and I till today are students of business thinking. We are definitely not experts, but we are year on year improving, hopefully, our level of business thinking. And it's definitely something you develop over time. The reason for that is, at the base of business thinking, there is obviously cold logic, first principles, problem solving. How do you take an ambiguous problem statement and craft it into small, digestible answers that work, that go towards the aim of whatever problem you're solving? That is common. But beyond that, I think over time, what really adds to business thinking is the number of situations you're exposed to and your ability to take from those situations and turn them into frameworks that you can carry forward in life. So the more time you spend in that world, the more experiences you have, the more learnings you absorb, and the better you get. It's almost like machine learning, right? You're building your frameworks over time. So I think by definition, business thinking is something you develop over time. It's not something you're born with or you're exposed to and it's a one-time learning, right? It's something you build over time.
Got it. And just to follow, but before you put me in the spot, just to follow up to that, because a lot of folks that might be watching might be from non-business backgrounds who may have done engineering or coding. So you obviously never actively studied business or accounts or economics in college or school, right? You went through the JEE part, then you cracked that, you almost killed yourself, then you went through the IIT Madras route, again almost killed yourself. So you've resurrected through the engineering route, and then you entered the world. So when you say it can be developed, did you feel at any point that you were disadvantaged on day one when you were entering the world of business, or you felt like a background in logic and smart thinking and execution was good enough to ramp up?
So there are certain things which, sure, there are standard toolkits that you want to learn. For example, when I entered the world of investing, accounting was a toolkit I had to learn. So on day zero, am I disadvantaged versus people who already know that? Sure. Is it something I can't surmount by spending time, investing time in learning those? Not at all. You can learn a set of standard toolkits. The good thing about business thinking is there aren't too many standard toolkits you must know, and none of them are too hard to pick up. Standard toolkits you can always pick up. You can look at some standard framework. You can look at accounting. You can go learn the 101 of marketing, the 101 of sales. You have to put in that minimum effort. But beyond that, I think it's quite easy in business to come to even ground. After that, it's about how many situations are you exposing yourself to and how best are you absorbing from those situations. Where you have to understand people have an advantage is if they've been looking at dhanda, which is a Hindi word for business, from a young age, do they have more situations they've exposed themselves to? Sure, maybe. Not insurmountable. You can start exposing yourself to those at any age and start grasping those. What really helps is having very strong logic, very strong problem-solving fundamentals, which is, again, something you grow into. I've had friends who've been excellent problem solvers, very strong in logic from day zero. I don't count myself as someone who had very strong logic from day zero. Had to build up towards it, so it can be done.
Got it. Fam. So you're saying the barrier to entry isn't a function of your educational background. It's more a function of your Have you built your basic smarts in problem solving? And then do you have a desire to get deep in functions and situations? Pick the learnings and then continuously be this iterative person who's using logic, situations, functional knowledge, and then getting better. So for anyone listening, you don't, having an MBA, having a BCom, having a economics degree, I think all of that is overrated to some extent when it actually comes to on-ground execution. Pure logical thinking gets you enough if you apply effort, is the takeaway. It's the reason I went deeper into
Absolutely.
it in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Over to you if you have a question up your sleeve,
yeah.
or if
Let
there's
the
any
fun
questions
begin
from the
now.
audience, maybe we'll take those later.
No, I don't think there's any question that's popped up fresh, but I think I've got an interesting set to throw at you and maybe put you on the spot. Let's start with, if you're a techie, why should business thinking be important for you?
Right. It's fantastic. The fun thing is that I'm not a techie, but the other thing is that I'm trying to extrapolate from my many conversations with all the techies I've now worked with, particularly in Scalar. And I suppose this is an imperfect answer, but I'll give you my basic point of view. I think broadly, I think there's two ways to think about it. One is the lens of impact, and the other is the lens of personal growth. Now, when you think of the lens of impact from a techie's point of view, what do techies essentially do? Techies essentially build things in this digital world, right? You'll build an app, you'll build a tool, you'll build a product, you'll build a functionality. But when you build something from an impact point of view, there is always going to be an input that you put, and then there is going to be an output, which is a working function or a working feature in a certain mobile app. Uh, and then there is going to be an outcome, and that outcome always translates into something that hits somebody's PNL. PNL is a profit and loss statement. The outcome, whether it is DAU or MAU or payment funnel or something, whatever that output and outcome that a techies build has, will hit in some way, some PNL, if you're working in the private sector. If you're working in the government sector, social sector, my answer does not apply. But therefore, given the impact funnel always leads to business, it is the end point. Uh, even a Facebook or a Google or someone would have sort of the P&L rolled up if you look at their annual report, where the activity engagement metrics on their platforms on Google search or on new product that Facebook launches, everything hits there, right? And so from a techie's point of view, I think it's important to see and be conscious of the fact that input output is great. Knowing how that translates to outcome enables you to solve backwards from it. So if you know, for example, that the goal of the business in this quarter or in this half year is to focus on 2 new geographies or 3 new target groups of users to adopt them to have greater penetration for future revenue, then your feature and the way you build out your tools should be focused with that user in mind and that business goal in mind. So your input output outcome will be a tight funnel. So I think that's number one from the lens of impact. Uh, Number two, I am personally a believer that of all the techies I have met, I have great respect, and I think my natural realization is that techies by default are very sound in a logical way, and adding a layer of uh, situational business intelligence to it can really add to a lot of perspective, which is, I think, the key hump to cross from sort of early career to mid career, where you grow into sort of from an SD1, SD2 to an engineering manager, and you perhaps have that added layer of business understanding. Your perspective, whether it is on a call or a conversation or the way you make a plan, is just very enhanced. Uh, and in some way, I see that because business thinking is more ambiguous, it allows for some cross pollination of ideas where that perspective can help you use, as a techie, you use the way you think about your algorithms, the way you think about your data structures can be informed by some of the more real world situations, where business thinking has completely different DSA, but it also has DSA. So I think those two reasons. One is the impact funnel is very clear. If you think of output and outcome, work backwards from it. So having a business edge helps. So it's important. And two, I think you build perspective both for a personal growth point of view, as well as just getting better at what you're doing in tech by looking at the other side. But
Got it. Got it.
again, disclaimer: I'm not a techie. This is my extrapolated understanding having seen interactions where I've seen techies grow when they adopt this mindset.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I think looking back, you have some fabulous aha moments coming in from the tech team when they merge sort of the business problem and the solution you're trying to drive towards with things that they can build in tech which we couldn't even envision, and come up with an answer that's the perfect answer to drive that outcome, right? So what you're saying is essentially in the private sector, all activities eventually linked to a business outcome, a business goal. The moment a tech is aware of that goal, they can build in that perspective into whatever solution they propose and drive more aha moments for the business, for themselves, for that's the best use of their time at the end of the day, because you want to drive towards a certain outcome that's appreciated by everyone, that's driving on-ground impact. So that's a very interesting point of view. You're right. Got it. I think you've dealt with. Go ahead.
And why we're saying that, I think Amit and Shailesh have some interesting questions here on the chat. So Amit's question is, does business thinking help transform from tech to managerial role? And then Shailesh's question is, what do you think where private sector, when you talk with respect to techies, does a techie need to learn management at some point? I think the step back, Amit, Shailesh, and the rest of us on this call is, why do I keep saying this is a call? It's a YouTube live, it's not a call. Maybe it's also LinkedIn live. I don't know where it's being projected. But a step back, I think the answer is that from a technology, whatever aspect of role you're in, front end, back end, a niche field like IML, that is a functional way of thinking and solving problems. You come to a certain part of a problem like an app and you're working on the front end set or the back end set. So that is a functional depth that you build. What business thinking adds is it adds a horizontal layer, not just a functional vertical layer, because then you start thinking, okay, how would the marketing team interface with me? What would the business team say? What would the sales team say? How does this impact PNL? How does it impact investor? It is just that stretch, that leap to say that you're not going to be in your narrow swim lane of a function or a vertical. You're going to be horizontal, strong in problem solving, situational understanding, orchestration, communication, stakeholder management. And so, yes, Shailesh and Amit, it does help you transform to be seen as a better engineering manager than another engineering manager who may not have consciously tried to build this horizontal skill set. So a horizontal is the foundation, right? Like think of your education in you did your science and physics and chemistry and all of that happy stuff in class 11th, but you learned the basics of algebra and math and English and all of that and Hindi and all of the languages in class 4, 5, 6, right? Those were the horizontals. The verticals came in 11th, 12th and college. Similarly, if you're working in the private sector, having a basic business thinking is the horizontal. Whether you're tech, you're marketing, your sales, that's a vertical. So of course, having a horizontal will add value to any function, in particular because techies are building tools and businesses of the future. If you as a techie build that horizontal skill set, you have an edge over any other function to become a senior leader, to become a founder, to become a CEO. So it doesn't just help you. I think it is fundamentally one of the most important advantages a techie has today, because this is the world of tech. 100 years later, 100 years earlier, you may not be in this ripe spot. If you're a techie now, no better time than today to build your horizontal business skill set. So that was a passionate answer because I genuinely feel timing is very important. I hope Amit, Shailesh, that answers your curiosity.
Absolutely. And I think also at a very personal level, it really helps you build optionality, right? Because once you are a master of your domain, which is, say, I'm a full stack engineer, I'm great at it. After that, if you also have a basic understanding of a few other things, whether that's sales, marketing, product, how is the CEO thinking, how is the chief product officer thinking, how are the business guys thinking, you've built a lot of optionality for yourself, because you can choose to continue growing into a tech leader where as you grow up, you need to have other skills around people management, prioritization, etc. You can also say you're in your mid-30s, early 40s, you thought you were passionate about tech the last 15 years, but now you want to transition into something else, you're just bored, which is probable. You have the optionality to switch to other things. You can say, hey, I've got an idea. I understand the basics of business. I'm great at tech. I can go start up. Or, hey, after a point, I want to transition to product. Or after a point, I want to start interfacing more between tech and marketing. Can I build something there? So the more you know across different fields, even if it's at a basic level, you're building optionality for yourself in your career. And that is going to help growth at the end of the day, because you really don't know what you want to do 10 years down the line. Today you love coding. Tomorrow are you going to love coding 16 hours a day? You don't know.
Yeah, I mean, most things I love change every 5 years, so it is quite harrowing to keep switching interests. But I do think that optionality point is very very valuable in today's time, particularly. I think before we go further in questions, which are plenty, I want to address Sudhir's question, and Ankita has a similar question. But Sudhir's question is, what is business thinking in layman terms? We've gone on to give examples, but we haven't really addressed the absolute basics. So,
Yeah.
instead of me trying to do this, Bhavik, you're on the spot. Give a layman understanding of what you mean by business thinking, like de-jargonize it.
Awesome. Let me take a crack at this. Business thinking. Let's deconstruct this, right? We all, I mean, most of us work in the private sector. We all work for organizations, for businesses. Most businesses in the private sector in a capitalist world have certain standard set of objectives. Their objectives are returning money to their shareholders, to their stakeholders. The way they do that is by creating wealth. They create wealth for the shareholders by building either a product or a service, right? If that is what the objective of a business is, in the most layman terms, business thinking is the ability to understand how decisions need to flow towards that objective. If the business's objective is, for example, in Scalar's case, delivering educational outcomes, career outcomes for people, Yash and I, as business people, are here to think about how can we deliver those objectives while also delivering value to all our shareholders, all our stakeholders, right? Which could include our investors, it could include our customers,
Oops.
it includes our employees.
Is there a technical challenge? I need
Can
to
you
check
still hear me?
if my internet is
We
now.
can
I
hear
can,
you.
Bhavik.
Awesome. Cool. Minor technical glitch. Let me just complete that thought, and then I'm going to Uno reverse card this to you. To me, business thinking in the most layman terms is each business has an objective. Most businesses have common objectives of creating impact for their customers, delivering value for all the stakeholders involved with that business. Business thinking is the ability to say, okay, this is my goal. What can I do to build value for each of these stakeholders? What can I do to build value for my customer? What can I do to build value for my team? What can I do to build value for my shareholders? And hence, business by definition is very broad based. Yash and I, on a daily basis, engage with multiple people, with our customers, with sales, with marketing, with tech, with product, with ops, etc. And the reason we do that is because we, as sort of business people, have to keep in mind each org's outcome, whatever they're driving towards, and stitch it together so that the organization's outcome is met, their objectives are met. So when people say dhanda chalana, it's literally there is a customer problem on one end, there are all these different stakeholders, marry all of this together. That's my very broad articulation of it. You've had a longer time to think about this. Better come up with a better quality answer now.
There's a lot of pressure I feel right now. I'm sweating already. I shouldn't have asked you this question. Thanks, Sudhir, for putting us on the place. But I will take a stab. I think I did actually everything you say. I think makes sense. I completely agree with it. The only way I'd like to think of it is essentially going back to where you started, Bhavik, which is we operate in a sort of capitalist setup where you have companies as the primary units of value creation in economy. Value is created by making revenue, having lesser cost, having profits, and then accruing that value for the shareholders over time. Now, all of this is jargon, which is to say that you generate value, and that all the thinking and the execution that goes towards that is business thinking. However, the nuance is this. The nuance is that in order to generate value, many parts that are otherwise disjointed and different need to come together. Like if at Scalar we are running a business, then the instructors, the technology team, the sales team, the marketing team, the operations team, the support team, the finance team, the HR team, the business team, everybody has to come together to solve for that objective function of value creation. And so the thinking behind how to distribute the goal of value creation, almost in a tree-like data structure across the various aspects of the organization, how each part of the organization has to have a cascade of goal, that sums up to the organizational goal of value creation, to think through that, and then to execute through that, and then to orchestrate and manage stakeholders through that. That is the core of business thinking and execution. But think of
Yeah.
it as essentially value creation is the goal. Disjointed parts need to come together. You stitch them through a cascade of metric goals, and holding the stitching together of this tree, moving across different elements, the sales KRs, the key results, the tech key results, etc. That breadth, and then going back to the goal. So zoom in, zoom out from the goal, and then zoom left, zoom right between functions. That is business thinking. In a very tactical way, what that means in my mind is go back every time, and with every conversation and project and problem and part of work that you're doing, ask what goal is this solving. If that articulation is fair and there is a logical approach to solve that, and the articulation says yes, that goal links back to value creation, that is business thinking. Simple. So
Yeah.
I think slightly anecdotal way that Bhavik gave it, I think my way is to try to look at it as a cascade and probably picture it and imagine it. And I hope that helps all of us on this in this session get a view from both Bhavik's point of view and my point of view to have a holistic view. But we won't spend more time on this question. I think it should be at least 80% clear, unless we're doing a really bad job, which I hope we're not. Uh,
Well,
so
we have one more shot at fixing that in case we are. Let me throw another question at you. And let this be more at the juncture of business and tech, right? Because I'm sure we have a lot of techies watching this right now. When you're launching any app or a website, there are certain strategy steps that go into doing that, right? And when those are done, that eventually flows down to the tech team and they build it. What are those steps which precede building an app, a website, a product? And how does someone from the tech background kind of develop those skills, or at least an understanding of what led to those decisions that today they're working on?
you have to shorten the question, Bhavik, before
Okay,
I go
let
into
me
a
make it
tailspin of
crisper.
existential strategy.
Okay,
And Sudhir, I'm
two
glad
questions for
you
you.
find the analogy helpful. Just to Sudhir's point on the comments, I think if you want, we can do more sessions. But as you want, if as a techie you want to go deeper into business, what you'll realize is essentially problem solving is problem solving. You just use the right data structures in business and different data structures in CS. You use different algos in business, different algos in CS. Some have bounded problems, which are more bounded, and you can bound them better in a tech world, virtual world, you can compile the code. In a business world, you can't bound the problem. You struggle to bind the problem most of the time, but you still follow the fundamentals of problem solving. You arrange the data in a certain way, and then you find the most efficient algorithm. That remains the absolute same. So, which is why we're doing this session, and we can take more real life examples as well. But I'm glad Sudhir you found that tree example helpful.
Yeah.
That was my respite from your question, Bhavik, which is a question now
No.
that I'm
Most
reading here.
coders I know have solid logical thinking, and it's actually quite easy for them to then transition that to the broader world of business. I think the point which you said, which really resonated with me, was unbounding that problem. Right? Today, as a coder, you might be using a lot of strong logical and analytical skills to solve a certain type of problems. If you remove those constraints, think broader, think in terms of business, think in terms of the world in general, right? I mean, what is business? Think in terms of problem solving for the world. That's when you transition to sort of what we call business thinking. But yeah, going back to my question, let me try to make it crisper for you. When someone launches an app or a website, there are different strategies. Marketing is one of them. What are those? How do you develop those skills?
Got it. Another bead of sweat dropping down my beard that no one can see. That apart, I think the
Thank God for
answer
that.
the answer is there's no perfect answer, and definitely I think I'm not an expert at this, but my interpretation is the following: uh, launching anything, whether it is an app, a new company, a product within a company, launching anything at the very heart of it implies that there is somebody else who needs it. The genesis of doing something stems from somebody else's pain that they want that problem solved. Hence the terminology, pain point, user story, epic, all that product management jargon that absolutely doesn't need jargon. Point is that there is somebody who has a problem of how to communicate with each other beyond SMS, and so WhatsApp came in. People wanted to know more about what other people's lives are about, and so Facebook came in. It was solving a need or a pain that people felt, may have expressed in some shape or form. When they saw a solution, they adopted it. So before launching an app or a website, the first thing to articulate very clearly is who has that problem, what is that problem, and how deeply do they feel that pain of that problem being unsolved. For example, does the problem exist today with the 25-year-old Indian adult in a city? That is the person, that is the persona working in a MNC. That is the persona, for example. And is the problem that they can't find someone to date easily? And how deeply do they feel it? Maybe the depth of intensity of that pain is at the 24, 25, 26 mark at a certain level, and then also at the 21, 22. So you've categorized who the person is, where they live, what age group they're in, what sort of overall socioeconomic status they have, what is the pain that they feel, the pain of not being able to meet somebody because they're out of college. And typically social networks dwindle right after school and college. So school is where you have most number of friends. College again, you get into work, your time is going to work, so you lose track of a lot of friends, and then you don't know how to date, or you broke up with someone, and so you want to find someone new that you can date. And so that's that intensity of problem with existential crisis with 3 years of work is deep and existential, and you really feel lonely. Right? So that is the intensity of the problem, which is why Tinder existed, which is why Tinder does well, which is why Bumble came in. And so the other example why I said this is, if you look at marketing strategy, Bumble was much later than Tinder. But Bumble's marketing strategy was to say, hey, this is a place that is safer for women, because women have the first right of interaction rather than getting spammed. And that instantly meant that even a late starter, because they understood the user, because the user is not just a 23 or 25-year-old person, it is the male versus the female. And the ratio matters, and the females were the ones that were not feeling secure. So they targeted the female first approach in the marketing of GTM. And that led to better adoption and greater retention. So in summary, if you step back and say the skill here, the fundamental skill at a horizontal level is you need to understand whose problem you're solving, why they have the problem, how deep is their problem, and then how do you present to them the solution that solves this problem. That is marketing. Right? And the skill here is essentially in the articulation that I just did. There is no skill. This is just thinking and understanding and talking to 100 users. If you think there's a problem, go talk to 100 users. You'll get to know whether it's a good enough opportunity or not. Of course, you'll do the TAM sizing and all of that, but you talk to 100 users, and most likely. The skill here is just curiosity. The skill that is then more functional is building specific pieces of code, for example, for a front-end app, or doing specific copy or design for Facebook ads. Those are functional, tactical skills that you can pick up to then validate this curiosity, whether this market exists or not. So in summary, I think the first thing you need to do is validate if the problem is real. Talking to people is the best solution with doing some back-end numbers. Go deep and try to identify the intensity. And that's the skill of curiosity, logical curiosity. And then post that, you get tactical to go with functions and say, hey, listen, to do this survey, I need this. To run a Facebook ad, I need to know how to make creatives on Canva. To then have sort of a survey mechanism, here's the loop I need. For Typeform, I need this. For front end, I need to use this no-code tool, or I need to get a coder to do it. Or I'm a coder, I can do it. Right? That becomes the functional execution. You listen to data and then you. So that's the method here. A little bit passionate, long, and I hope it wasn't too fast. But I'm saying this to sort of debug the notion that there is a secret set of skills. There is not. It's very, very logically, it's very simple. Difficulty is doing it.
Yeah. And I think that's where I've seen some wonderful product people who are at that beautiful juncture where they're also the techie, they understand how to build things, and they're super deep into the customer psyche because either they themselves are customers or they have spent so much time with them. They understand what the pain point is. They understand, hence, what is the painkiller needed to kill that pain. And so they can go back, engage with the team. So I think all the techies watching this, I think you have a wonderful opportunity to use the functional skills you have, and then just be super curious about what problem you're solving. Go talk to the customer, go really understand what is it that hurts them.
Yeah, you are at the end of the day, all of us are in the business of selling Jandu Balm. We are painkillers. If we build products, essentially we're building some of the other digital painkiller for a human need that people are willing to pay either with time or with money.
Yeah. Okay, let's do quick fire round now.
Awesome. The last 10 minutes,
All of us, both of us have 90 seconds to answer a question to the best of our abilities. And the moment one person finishes, the other person throws a question at them. Works? Let's do
Works. And I get to ask you because I went very long and belabored with this. So I will pick the first question.
Go for it.
Cool. First question is, tell me the two biggest mistakes you've made in business thinking so far.
Okay. Number one, you have to get the problem statement clear. If you are confused about what are you solving for, you will obviously come up with a wrong solution most of the time. Maybe accidentally you strike up the right one. But if you're not clear on what your objective is at the end of the day, you're not going to get to the right solution. And that sounds like something very simple, but in the biggest of companies with the smartest of minds, often it's just a miscalibration of one team thinking they're solving for one problem, another team thinking they're solving for another problem. And at the end of the day, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of hard work goes and you realize, hey, we were never on the same page. Or the company is not on the same page as the customer. They saw one phenomena that, hey, the customer needs XYZ. They think they're solving for that. They build an entire product, go to market, it flops. Why do products flop? Why do companies flop? Because they got the problem statement wrong. So if you're not going and really understanding the problem statement, having a very clear articulation of that problem statement for everyone involved, which comes from the customer, you are most probably going to fall flat. And I think that's one of the most common business mistakes that anyone at any stage of experience is liable to make. So I think that's one. I think very closely linked
20
to that,
more seconds. 20 more seconds.
Very closely linked to that is, how do you know you're even getting at the right problem statement? How do you know you have the right fact base? You have to triangulate. Go talk to the customer, go look at data, go talk to internal stakeholders. Just keep triangulating, right? Get information from different angles and see if all of that tallies to one particular question. And that's time.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, your question. Let's see.
I think there's a question Himanshu has, by the way. We can take that.
Oh, very interesting. Let me look at the chat. Sorry, I missed that out. How to find business-oriented people for working together in businesses? How do you find the right team, the right mix of people in a business? 90 seconds starting now.
Okay, let me break this down, right? So there are multiple sources of finding the people, Himanshu. The first source is you tap into existing networks from college or school that you have. In particular, I have found that when I go back and look at people's career paths and where they started and what kind of interactions they're now having on LinkedIn or anywhere else, I'm able to see a natural curiosity that they have. For example, I know a friend who got really deep into YouTube. I know another friend who got really deep into product management in Cred and other companies. So I'm able to find them. In college, I didn't realize that they were in that direction, but I'm now able to go back and say, hey, listen, why don't we chat about this topic? Now, that's the identification part. Part two, and by the way, identification can have multiple levers. One is past connects. Second is cold connects really work, but you have to play a volume game. It's a little bit like dating. You try 100, 3 will work, 2 will work, 1 will work. If you're unlucky like me, maybe 0.1 will work. But essentially, you identify from past connects, you identify from fresh connects, which can be both cold and non-cold. In the non-cold, you may have some warm connects through references and friends, but that's your identification. Identification is often not the tough part. Part two then becomes how to find and make that relationship work. Now, making the relationship work in terms of working together has to be a give and take, where the first step is a give. Now, the give is basically show interest in two things. One, show interest in their journey in terms of what they've done and why you need to connect with them. We typically get, anyone would get 5, 10 LinkedIn comments a day. It's very vanilla. If you tell them why exactly you want to connect with them, what you saw in their journey that interests you, that helps. And number two, 5 more seconds, you have to then give value towards what you're curious about that they think they'll be interested in. So step back, you have to identify them, past connects, new connects, cold, warm, and then to give them a sense of, why specifically you want to reach out with them, what common curiosity you can have with them. The mechanics of this can be tracked on an Excel sheet. You map out 500 interesting people, and I'm sure 5 will want to have a chat with you. After that, it's your game. Wow, that's difficult. Okay, Bhavik, you're not going to have easy time. Thanks, Himanshu, for the question. Bhavik, the rapid fire question for you is, let me think.
I already have my next one for you. So if you don't give me one in 5 seconds, I'm giving another one.
I'm giving you one. I'm giving you one very quickly. Cool. So if you just I guess the question for you, Bhavik, is when people think of business, should they use the big examples of the Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, or should they look at micro examples to get inspired?
Okay, to make sure I'm understanding this correctly,
should you draw inspiration and learnings only from the big example of Jeff Bezos, or should you go learn from the kirana shop in the neighborhood?
Got it. Okay, I think I directionally know where I'm going with this answer. The key question is, what is this inspiration for, right? I think they're different. Let's divide it into inspiration and learning, because they are often two different things. When you look at these big names, the Jeff Bezos of the world, a lot of big entrepreneurs who came from very humble beginnings and then did some great stuff. If you're looking at them from inspiration, find whatever story you relate to, and then draw on that to really feel excited, feel motivated, feel willing to go the extra mile. So big stories are often very good for inspiration, motivation, etc. For learning, never underestimate the small stories. For learning, one of my biggest lessons in life is the more conversations you have, where you go and ask 1, 2, 3 extra questions, you draw some learnings out of them. Super valuable. You cannot go and ask a Jeff Bezos, why did he take XYZ decision? But you can look at people around you. You can look at the kirana store. You can look at the plumber who comes to your house. You can look at your colleagues who are in other departments. And when you go and ask them certain questions, when you get some information from them and you ask them one why, one how, that is going to unpack so much information for you, which builds your ability to understand other perspectives, builds your ability to build frameworks and empathize with frameworks in other areas that you are not working in. The same way they don't understand trees, you don't understand marketing spends and return on investment. So to sum it up in the last 6 seconds, use the big stories for inspiration, but don't underestimate the small ones for learning.
Awesome. This was very bang on time, assuming I calculated time correctly, which I usually don't. I guess, Bhavik, rapid fire can end, but if you want, you can have another question, another go at me.
One question, because this, I think, is going to be super relevant to everyone here. Whoever is watching us, hopefully someone is. If you're a techie, you've seen this session, you feel a little motivated to go do business thinking or ramp up on it. What are some of the easy resources that you can look at to start cultivating this mindset and this way of thinking?
Okay, tough one. Got it. Let me step back. If you're a techie, you're interested in finding and using resources to develop business thinking, there are broadly, I think, three things that you can do to start. Number one, you can go and look at, as a consumer, your favorite companies that you've bought products of, and go study just their journey. When it started, why it started, how it grew, as a story. That's the first thing. Because if you as a consumer can then go back and understand how the business developed, then you'll understand whose problem they're solving, because they're solving your problem. So that's the first easy resource to understand and build an intuition for the problem of business thinking. Two, is watch commentary on businesses. Now, the word commentary is loaded because it means any article, any report, any news report, any YouTube video, any analyst report on a company is essentially an outsider commenting on how this business is being run. Find your easiest source of commentary. My recommendation is, if you pick up YouTube and search for the story of that company and ask for the genesis of that company, the story of Apple, the story of other companies, that is a great source to get a second person point of view on that. You can go more analytical by looking at some annual reports. It's overwhelming, but start with just one annual report and list down all the things you don't understand and Google them. You'll most likely get close to a BCom if you try to go deep enough in it. And it's very interesting. So that's number two. So journey of company. Two, look at commentary. Soft sources are videos and articles. Hard sources are annual reports. Pick one. It's good enough. Go deep. Be curious. Number three. I think number three is essentially, if you're a techie, most likely you're working in a company, you start getting optional invite on calls with people who are working on business or sales or marketing problems, and just ask them 3 stupid questions per day. If you do that, you're most likely going to understand the basic resources and tools that they're using and how they're thinking, why they're thinking. Now, if you index back to my 3 sources, the first one is secondary data of companies that you enjoy. So you probably will get curious. The second one is commentary. You start soft, you go hard with annual reports. And then with annual reports, you go into hyperlinks of, hey, what does P&L statement mean? Why is revenue called revenue? Why is cost called cost? And then I think finally, you pick the sources nearby to you in your company and you ask them 2 or 3 stupid questions regularly. And that is the path to becoming sort of smart at business thinking. So those 3 should help.
Nailed it. We've ended this session on a really impactful answer. Well done.
My God, I'm sweating. I think there are 5 beads now. It was 1 bead earlier. Thank you
I'm
so much
sure
for the
you're gonna
questions.
win
Then
this next week.
I'm going to end this. We don't know, guys, if we should do these sessions or not. If you like this kind of conversation, this line of thinking or not. I know a lot of us come to the Scalar YouTube channel for hardcore tech content, which is what we primarily do. We've been told by coders in recent time that, hey, give us a little bit extra. Give us a little bit of soft skills, give us a little bit of business thinking, stuff that you can't find anywhere else. And we're trying to do that as an experiment to see if that is adding value. So please share it, comment on this, and let us know if you like it. If you like it, we'll continue. If you don't, we can switch over to more hardcore tech stuff, and somebody else can do that. But happy Friday to all of you. Rajan, Pankaj, Himanshu, Ankita, everyone watching. Thank you so much. Sudhir in particular, I think you had 4 comments and been really engaging. Havik, any parting words for the wonderful audience? Maybe there's no one watching us, but any parting words?
No, I think you've gone back to the first principle we started with, which is understand your customer's pain point. So everyone watching this live or later on recorded, let us know if we should continue these, and let us know some other topics that you might want to hear about. If those are soft skills, business related, you might see Yash and my faces here again. If they are anything tech related, we will make sure we'll get some excellent people, experienced people to talk about those. Let us know what you want to see. And have a great, safe weekend.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.